Well, hello there. It is great to see you again, and welcome back to the MSP Success Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff, and this here is the show where we highlight extraordinary managed service providers and discuss, a few different things. We like to peel back the curtains, see what, is allowing them to achieve success in this space. And then, of course, we always want their industry insight. We want to dive into the world of IT systems and solutions. Of course, cybersecurity, that's a really big topic on our show. And speaking of which, we have got a great guest teed up for you guys today to discuss cybersecurity as a whole. We're really fortunate to welcome Rene Miller today, the CEO of Ener Systems LLC. I want to share a little bit of information about Rene before we bring him on to get our conversation rolling. Rene, yes, I did just mention he's the CEO of Ener Systems LLC. Now, Ener System, they're based out of the Covington, Louisiana area, but again, serving really the entire New Orleans market, really the greater state of Louisiana, and thanks to the beauty of technology beyond that even. But yes, they have a very heavy focus on cybersecurity, which we're going to dive into. We're going to get Rene's, thoughts on the matter, of course, where cybersecurity might be going in the future, all the good stuff when it comes to cybersecurity. But additionally, Rene's and his company, they're going to be featured in a special edition, upcoming edition of the MSP Success magazine. So be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, Rene is also writing an upcoming book that's focused around this same topic of cybersecurity. That's going to be released later here in 2022. We'll be on the lookout for that as well. So we've got a lot to get to today when it comes to this world of cybersecurity and really just, Rene and his work with Ener Systems LLC. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring Rene out to get today's conversation rolling. Rene, great to see you today. How you doing?
Unbelievable. How you doing, Ryan?
Hey, I'm doing really well. I appreciate you carving some time out of your day to be with us. I know you're a busy guy. You got a company to run. But look, we're going to be diving into, of course, your company, cybersecurity as a whole on the show today. But I think a good place for us to start would be to kind of zoom out for a second and give our audience a little bit of background on you. Could you talk to me a little bit about, how it is that you even got into this business in the first place? That's always a fun question to get us started. Talk to me a little bit about this.
Well, I guess I've always had a little bit of the entrepreneurial bug in me and
Mm-hmm.
always trying to improve things. And that starts way back. For me, I guess probably somewhere around the third grade, I finally figured out how things started getting back together, meaning that before then I would take stuff apart and they would never get back together. It was just a mess of parts. So bicycles was my first thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around third grade, as things started clicking together, I was able to put things together, started improving. And finally, I figured out a way to make my bicycle faster than the other kids by taking parts from a 10-speed bike and putting it on my little 20-inch bicycle.
Uh-huh.
And kids they couldn't catch up. First gear, I took them off the line. Second gear, take them on the high end. So it started young, but then I graduated pretty quickly. By the seventh grade, the entrepreneurial bug grabbed me, and I had my own auto repair shop. People would bring me cars to do simple things like tune-ups or brake jobs, but also more complicated things like renovations. 55 Packard comes to mind that I did, a 1946 Chevy truck that I renovated. And so that was, I did that up until my college days and through college.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran that business of auto repair. And in college, I majored in mechanical engineering. It's where I met my wife and my partner, Michelle. And she's also a mechanical engineer. Both of us, continued our education, became registered professional engineers. But then, we took and, keep going down that, enjoying automotive. We went into the auto parts manufacturing business. So we went to work for a company out in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, and where our job was to do labor process improvement. So basically what that means is that, out there you got a lot of labor to make a widget. So you'd have an assembly line. You might have 15, 20 people on the assembly line. And our job was to, part of the problem, the good and the bad thing about problem with people is they're not always repeatable, or they don't always show up for work. Well, our job was to, where possible, take and improve the assembly line by
Mm-hmm.
automating assembly processes. So most of the jobs we did had probably 90% of the product cost was in labor. And so we would take and use computerized robots. And that was kind of our first foray into, networking and
Uh-huh.
computers, is
Sure.
to have multiple robots on the assembly line. They have to talk to each other. They have to network. They have to communicate. The only
Mm-hmm.
problem is out there in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, there's not a lot of IT people. And
Sure. Sure.
so we as engineers had to do it, found out we knew pretty quickly we were pretty good at it and had
Mm-hmm.
fun. It was enjoyable. And as we were working, a lot of fun, but a lot of long hours.
Sure.
Monday through Friday, we probably spend 70 hours in the plant.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that's just Monday
Yeah.
through Friday. So, and
Mm-hmm.
again, keeping either new automation, new projects, keeping those going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of fun, a lot of computers, run all that into. We have to take the computer controls. We have to take things like automation in space. We have to take, get numbers off of them.
Mm-hmm.
But where kind of came into how we ultimately got into IT, that what kind of turned for me was that while we do everything Monday through Friday, busting our butts, and so that we could have weekends off. And so we'd get our work done. So one holiday,
Mm-hmm.
one Thanksgiving, I remember it, we came home for Thanksgiving. We had everything, the plant's running. We left, come home, join Thanksgiving Day. I get a call from my boss, Michelle's boss, and he says, "Hey, look, we need y'all to come in tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh, really? Something must be broken." He says, "No." Well, something's not working. What's going on? He says, "No, that everything's working fine. Just need you to come in tomorrow." I said, "Well, why is that?" I said, "We've got our job done." He said, "Well, basically, it was Misery Loves Company. Some of the other groups had to come in, so they're like, well, I need,"
Mm-hmm.
and it basically became a power play to
Yeah.
have us come in. We knew that, hey, look, the whole work-life balance thing wasn't going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, Michelle and I really started talking deep about, because she's like, "Rene, you can't keep your mouth shut. See, long term, you're not going to be employed, and you're not going to work for
Sure.
somebody else. So
Uh-huh.
let's find, we're pretty good at this IT thing,
Mm-hmm.
and let's go down that path." So at that point, we decided, Michelle, you start the business. So at that point, Michelle exited the company, started the IT business. I
Mm-hmm.
started helping her in late nights and in weekends
Mm-hmm.
on various jobs that she would get. And about 18 months later, I left. We got an opportunity back here in
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, in New Orleans, and both of us moved back to be able to support this large client, and we haven't looked back since. That was
That's
19. That was started the business in '97, and '98 we moved back and haven't looked back.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, if there's one thing that I pick up from that story, it's that both you and Michelle really are doers. From hands-on work, working through with automotive parts all the way up through basically, integrating yourself into networking. I mean, you guys are doers and movers and shakers. You go through that process. You educated yourself on this world of networking, have clearly grown with it since '98, and adjusted on the fly and re-educated yourselves on so many things throughout. I mean, so there's something to be said. When starting a company, it's always an interesting story, right? But there's something to be said when there's a lot of education that has to happen before you can even take that what is always a daunting leap of starting your own business. So tip of the cap to you and Michelle for the work well done. But I think it'd be good now, here we are, 98, you make the pivot to work with Michelle, join the company full time, facilitating what you said was a larger client at that time. Talk to me about the gap between 98 and here we are today in 2022, sitting down to have this conversation. What have these years been like for you guys? And I guess ultimately what I'm really getting at is if you could just tell us a little bit about Ener Systems LLC and really what makes you guys unique as a whole.
Well, I'd like to leverage what you just said. Take off. You mentioned education. Education is an ongoing thing. IT is without a doubt
Yeah.
a space that in cybersecurity, what a person knows today is very quickly made obsolete because the threat changes. And so an ongoing, continuing education is just part of what we have to be. It also is, what say, part of what makes us different is, the ongoing, whether it's us attending Black Hat, the premier cybersecurity conference every year over in Black Hat that's been going on. They've been having that for 27 years now, 28 years. And whether it's that or ongoing education with, getting me having a CISSP, that's a cybersecurity systems, cyber information system security professional. And we're kind of the only ones in this market that where the business owner actually has that. And maybe even further out than that, maybe even the US, maybe in the multiverse. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But really, there's not that many of us that have taken that education to the next level. So we take that, as well as another part of education is that for the past, I don't know, since 2009, Michelle and I have been part of a accountability group. And that accountability group helps grow us and through us, our clients, in spaces. We meet 4 times a year. And those topics are not just about cybersecurity, but it's also to help grow us professionally, whether as business leaders, as partners, as dads, moms, spiritually. So, we get to learn from, whether it's on the business side, getting to learn from people like Sir Richard Branson. And hey, get to understand, hey, what was his path like? What can we learn from that?
Sure.
What did he go through? And leverage that, and what can we take to our clients? Or people like Vern Harnish, where learning how to scale a business and what makes that work well and avoiding pitfalls. But also other education places that we've taken that kind of we've leveraged to bring back to our clients, because ultimately we're here to support our clients' businesses. IT is just part of that facilitating to help them deliver what they do best. And so, and as an example of that would be like meeting with one of my clients, and she has high turnover of employees. That has nothing to do with IT. And so from what we've learned in the accountability groups is content around the information that Patrick Lencioni taught with like the ideal team player, how to interview for those kind of people. And took that information to her, brought it to her, showed her how to use it. And she's drastically cut her turnover of people, her big revolving door that she had with hiring. Another example comes to mind in terms of what kind of makes us unique and resourceful is that, again, where clients are asking us for information, not just about IT, but around things that have nothing to, tangentially related to IT. Power comes to mind. Before COVID, we had a hurricane come through down here. We're in South Louisiana. There's storms every summer. And the client lost electricity. And when you lose electricity, you don't know whether it's going to be for 30 minutes or it's going to be for 2 days or a week after a storm. And again, this was pre-COVID, so most people were not working remotely. And in this situation, they lost power. The client doesn't call up their electrician, doesn't call up the building owner. They call us and, hey, what can we do? And so we're like, hold on a minute. He said, well, can we move our server somewhere else? I said, hold on a minute. We probably have an easier solution. So we went and brought them went and got a generator, loaned them a generator, got it hooked up for them. And the building came up. People were able to start coming back to the office and work, and for them to be able to support their clients.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, so it sounds to me like there's a lot of just flexibility that you guys bring to the table. The education and the expertise on a wide array of topics, both IT solutions and networking and beyond, that you guys bring to the table. And you clearly have that flexibility to try and brainstorm and come up with some creative solutions given varying, issues that can occur with clients. And you know, Rene, one big thing that is obviously a very evolving issue, especially since you guys came into into your situation in '98 with the company, is this overarching idea of cybersecurity. I mean, there is with the technological advancements that we've seen over the last few decades, it's been wild to see how this whole world, this whole conversation around cybersecurity has just grown and evolved and become so large. I'd love to get your take on just this is a loaded question. Why is cybersecurity just so important? Why are cybersecurity assessments so important? Why is cybersecurity something that should be at the forefront of everybody's thoughts these days?
Well, as you mentioned there, cybersecurity or IT, it's constantly evolving. I
Mhm.
sometimes like to use the analogy of missile anti-missile. The bad guys launch a missile at you. Well, you got to block it, right?
Mhm.
And then they figure out, oh, hey, that's how he's blocking. So we're going to do another weapon to attack and try to get through. And when we have to respond to that. And again, as you allude to, is that the bad guys, we have to be right every time off against every attack. The bad guys only have to be right once to get into a network and then create havoc. But we have to be right every time, not 90% of the time, not 99% of the time. We have to be right 100% of the time. So the threat's changing. That's an ongoing thing. And assessments are important. Cybersecurity audits are important. And I would say it this way. This is why it's important. It's no different, just like a company who brings in an outside CPA and says, hey, look, I need you to audit my financials. And, first thing comes to mind, some people say, oh, audit. Well, the audit is there because in the financial space, it's there because they want to make sure that there's not malfeasance, of course,
Mhm.
hope not, but also more often than not, the audit is there to make sure that the financial processes that a company has on how they record and report their financials are correct. Well, outside CPA, when he comes into a company and he's reviewing all these processes, it's a second set of eyes. When he's looking at these processes and he might find gaps, I hope you hope that they don't find malfeasance, but they look at this and they say, hey, this needs to be tweaked, this needs to be tweaked. And what comes at the end of that is the leadership of a company, 99 out of 100, doesn't go in and just fire the financial team because, oh, you missed something. No,
Right.
instead they say, okay, no, we need to tweak our process here, improve, get a little bit better. Or, hey, maybe we need to hire another person to do this extra process to make our reporting more robust. And in the same way, in cybersecurity audits, what I propose to clients is that what we need to do is have a third party, somebody else, not your current IT company, come in and check. Not because your IT guys are inadequate or not good enough or they're bad. It's to come in, we're checking to make sure that, just like in a financial audit, things are done correctly. Or they sometimes, in the case of cybersecurity, much more than financials, things are changing a lot more rapidly.
Sure.
And that's where a cyber audit can come in to help a company to make sure I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And as an example of that, where we've come into a company where they've hired us to do an audit, our team went in and worked for a company. They asked us to do the audit. We did the audit. We found that in their firewall, because again, best practices, there's probably a couple hundred different items on the checklist. But one
Sure.
of the items, this was a pretty in-depth cyber audit. And one of the things that we found is that the firewall was not configured correctly. And it was a potential window that was left open for, had it been found and leveraged by the bad guys, they would have been in their network and compromised things. So that was again where the audit found a hole. They were able to plug the hole using their current IT provider, plugged it, and as a result, it made them safer. Had they not had the audit, that hole may still be there, may not, but it was there. Bad guys could have leveraged it.
Mhm.
That was a preventative measure. Sometimes audits happened after the fact. It's forensically done. We've been called in after the fact. And in this example, we had a CFO engage us. We worked with them. The situation was they had noticed that a customer had a bunch of outstanding bills from a customer. They call the customer. The customer says, "No, we've already paid those bills." And the CFO said, "Really?" And the customer says, "Yes, we paid them. Here's our bank statement. Here, look, show the bank transfer." And he said, "Well, why'd you send it to that bank?" And the customer said, "Because you, the CFO, from your email, you said to do it. Send it to this account. We went back and forth with you through email. You said, absolutely, this is right." Boom, around $100,000 gone. We came in after the fact and found, yes, some best practices definitely weren't followed. For example, in this case, one of the best practices is at least to have two-factor authentication set up on email.
Absolutely.
And in the case of this CFO, he didn't. And we were able to, unfortunately, support the customer's claim that, yes, these emails really did come from the CFO. They really did come from his mailbox. And the bad guys were in his mailbox as they were corresponding with the customer. They would take the email, respond, delete. And so the CFO never saw this transactions and all this email exchange happening. So again, that's where an audit would have likely prevented, because it would have found that. And then of course the customer would have to go implement the 2FA with the help of the IT team.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, it sounds like to me, a cybersecurity risk assessment is just a really great tool for any company to utilize, as yes, just like you mentioned, it's not necessarily to undermine maybe the abilities or the practice that their current IT providers do. It's an opportunity to take a second look, get a second opinion, just to make sure, those best practices and those proper systems are in place.
That's right. Because I mean, what's the worst case? They find out that their current IT guys are doing 2 thumbs up, doing a great job.
Right. Exactly.
That's the worst that would happen. Get a validation. They get validation that things are being done right.
Yeah, again, not a bad worst case scenario.
That's right. Again, this is about getting rid of unplanned work. Which is that's what we kind of try to live by. We live by getting rid of unplanned work. Whether those holes were in the IT or in the firewall, or we didn't have to, in the case of the other example of the CFO not having multi-factor authentication turned on his email, those could have prevented those unplanned events.
Well, Rene, I think let's get a little granular with this almost. Could you kind of walk me through what some of the things that, what are the types of things that you guys do with your clients, or just any prospective clients, just any companies really in general, in helping to address their cybersecurity concerns? Talk to me about that granular level, maybe even after that standard or preliminary cybersecurity audit or risk assessment. What do you guys do beyond that?
Well, then, of course, there has to be a business conversation around where do they mean to go? Where do they want to go as a company? Where does this play in terms of how they deliver their service to their customers? So again, cybersecurity is not a one and done. It's a constantly changing landscape. Things are not, for example, what I mean by they're not static. They change. For example, 5 years ago, the best practice would have been, hey, change your passwords, or just change them often, change them a lot. And what did we, as an industry, we found that people were either, one, they were ignoring it, or two, they were using passwords that get written down on Post-it notes, and we stick them underneath the backside of the keyboard. That's real secure. Or they put them all in a Excel or a Word file, and then we can make it easy for the bad guys to look one place to find all our passwords. But where, of course, now the best practice has changed a few years ago to where we should be implementing multi-factor authentication. And of course, the next step is passwordless logins. So my point is that when we engaging a client or a prospective client, we first have to find out where they are, where do they mean to go, how integral is, hey, could they go back to pencil and paper? And yes, I've had people tell me, yeah, we can go back to pencil and paper. And I said, well, cybersecurity is probably not that important to you. If you can just go back to pencil and paper and still and serve your customers just as well. So we're coaching them with regards to where do they need to go? How does that impact their team? How does that impact their customers? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And Rene, the other thought that comes to mind is this idea that this is an ongoing process, right? I mean, given the landscape of cybersecurity changing, talk to me about how this idea of getting a cybersecurity risk assessment or an audit isn't like a one-stop shop solution, a one and done type thing. Talk to me about how there is a level of fluidity within all this.
There is, because it's not one, for example, a cybersecurity audit can go from something as simple as, hey, look, just run a couple automated tools and we check some things, and maybe that's good enough for some smaller companies or more simplistic companies, to where maybe we need to go up several levels and dive into firewalls, switches, physical security. When I say physical security, door access controls, cameras, videos, are all of those things attached to the same network? Who can get to what? Again, how does that align with, but again, it comes back to how does that align with the business and where the business needs to take this?
Certainly. So Rene, let me ask you this then. So for those in our audience, right, that have, we've obviously brought them up to speed on what Ener Systems LLC does on a regular basis, of course, how you guys go about your relationship with your clients. We've talked about this idea of the cyber, security audit and the risk assessment idea. If somebody out there is interested in your services, and maybe they want to get the ball rolling, start a conversation or a dialogue to see whether or not maybe the fit's right, or even to maybe have you guys conduct one of these cybersecurity audits, what would be the best way you would recommend somebody getting in touch with you and your team to get that ball rolling?
The easiest way would be just to go to our website and go to our website of enersystems.com, and with a / cyber audit. So ENER systems with an S at the end .com / cyber CYBERAUDIT. And you can sign up for a free cybersecurity audit. And then from that, what we do is we have a conversation and to make sure that what happens gets tailored to fit the need of the client.
Sure. And of course,
that's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Fantastic. And for our audience, there's obviously, you see beneath us, a link at the bottom of your screen for that. But no, I appreciate you, offering that for anybody that, took anything away from our conversation today. And Rene, let me, as we're kind of bringing our conversation to a head here on the show today, are there any final thoughts you might have in regards to just, maybe even thoughts on where you see cybersecurity going in the future, and just the overall importance and stressing that importance really of people taking this seriously, as we move forward and into even further technological advances that are obviously inevitable at this day and age?
As things continue to move forward, of course, what's happening, as long as we have electricity, we're going to have computers. And so this isn't a problem that's not going away. In this day of automation, as is called artificial intelligence, but anyway, computer algorithms that can do a lot of this automation in terms of looking for holes and probing people's networks automatically, so that bad guys can more easily or scale how fast they get into computer networks, victims' networks. Our response to that has to be dynamic, has to change. What we did a year ago, what we did 5 years ago, definitely not. But sometimes what we did a year ago, what we did 6 months ago is no longer adequate. And it's much more than just, hey, just patch your computers and that's good enough. But then again, I'd still ask, how do you know it's patched right? Unless somebody's checking. But it's an ongoing threat. This whole angle that zero trust is with us, meaning that how do I really know which the computers in my network? Do I really trust them? Can I trust them? And do we have tools or systems in place that can protect the customer, the ultimate customer, who we're helping on a day-to-day basis? Not so much the IT part. Again, these tools of IT are there to help our customer help their customer. And it's a morphine change.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just so much to consider within this front, and given that being the case, Rene, really appreciate you carving some time out of your day to jump on
Happy to do
board.
it. Happy to
Yeah,
do it.
share your thoughts just about this world. Of course, you and your wife's work with, when it comes to Ener Systems LLC. Clearly, you guys have built a successful business. You know how to take care of your clients. You wouldn't be on the show if you didn't have a level of success established anyway. But look, appreciate you and your time, Rene. I'll let you get back to your busy day. But thanks again for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Ryan.
Alrighty. And look, hey, we want to take one final moment, as always, to thank you guys, our audience, for joining us here on the show today. Do me a favor. If you liked what you saw, you liked what you heard, maybe you benefited from some of the conversation today, be sure to hit that like button or subscribe to the show, whichever platform you're checking us out on today. And then, of course, share this information with friends, family, business owners, anybody that you think would benefit from these types of cybersecurity, IT solutions discussions. At the end of the day, we're bringing extraordinary MSPs right to your doorstep through this show. We've got some great conversations, some additional great business owners that are going to be featured in episodes to come, and we'd hate to have you miss out on any of those potentially beneficial conversations. So for Mr. Rene Miller of Ener Systems LLC, I'm your host, Ryan Ruff. We're going to go ahead and say so long today, but we thank you again for joining us on today's edition of MSP Success Spotlight.